Hello, hello, welcome, please come in. It is time to resume our monk-only runs in this, Final Fantasy X-2, which may seem a little odd, considering monk is not a class in this game. While many Final Fantasy staples return, others do not. Or, as I'm going to argue, they do return, but with some tweaks. Because, while the Berserker shares a name with the class from Final Fantasy V, they don't really share that much else. Maybe the vague animalware theme, and obviously the Berserk ability. However, I argue that Berserkers share more in common with monks. They are unarmed combatants, punching, kicking, clawing, I guess that would be, and they do share the monk's penchant for high physical stats and low magical ones. They can also learn some limited special attacks and a suite of counterattacks, making Berserker in this game feel at least as monk as Berserker. And who doesn't love some 10-2 content? Besides, given the potential offensive power of Berserkers, this may be the first run where my damage isn't absolute garbage. So, I'm going to call these monks and move on. Anyway, after the mandatory starting fights, I can hack in a handful of Berserker dress spheres to pad out my starting grid so I can start the run with access to the class I will be using the entire run. And it's down to Mount Gagazet for the first proper mission. And that starts with a proper fight with LeBlanc & Co. Ooh, those damage numbers aren't bad. Berserkers also have the Berserk ability by default to Berserk the user. While nice, I won't actually be using this that much, mostly because I will want my party controllable more often than not. Look how fast these fights are. I know I'm a bit unclear how actual damage numbers should look in this game because my last two runs were Alchemist and Thief, two classes with terrible offenses, but wow, these fights are so much faster, and not miserable. Could this be the run that finally makes 10-2 playable? Anyway, climb up Mount Gagazet, beat up some goons, and it's time for the first boss, Boris. I do have a handful of abilities, though only Envenom is really relevant as it lets me poison the boss. I mean, I really didn't need to take the time to do that because, wow, that boss died very quickly. Okay, first mission done, and it was pretty easy. This frees me up to start heading where I actually want to go, which as usual means there is a lot to do. And I will be skipping most of it because a lot of the optional content gives me things I do not want or care about. First stop is Luca. The Healing Wind Garment Grid is likely trash because Berserker has a comically low magic stat, even lower than Alchemist and Thief, but completing that nonsense lets me grab 2 Lunar Curtains and the Thunderspawn Garment Grid, which absorbs lightning, so that might be useful. Next, it's on to the Mihen High Road, honestly just to grab some free items and get some experience in AP as I go. Skipping all the optional content means I'll basically always be under-leveled, so no harm getting some XP where I can. I do wish I had some healing though. Oh well. Okay, time to head through the fog in Mushroom Rock Road, and how weird is it that you can fight a Tonberry in the first 10 minutes of this game? Little guy's pretty durable. Time to run then. Anyway, completing this gets me a garment grid that is bad. Why did I do this? Anyway, looking at the rest of Chapter 1 areas, and yep, I don't care about any of these, so it's over to Besaid. Time to chat with... Oh, the game froze. Let me just reset that. There we go. Time to chat with Lulu, then take a nap, and it's time to find Waka. Which means I need to find these ciphers with codes around the map. And I can never remember where the fourth one actually is, so I'll just keep plugging in fourth values until the door opens. And in the back of this cave is a sphere, but before that, a boss. The flame dragon is big, strong, and can hit the entire party with fire breath. So I start by envenoming the dragon to get the passive poison damage. It does take 2 tries for the poison to stick, but that poison damage isn't bad. I can then just attack, and I was about to say heal with potions, but nope, didn't even need to heal. I think I'm going to appreciate the Berserker's high HP pool in this run. Anywho, that is Besaid completed. And that means next on the list is to head over to Zanarkand. The enemies here are pretty easy to beat the crap out of, and aren't really that interesting. Who knew dealing any damage would be very effective here? It is at least an ongoing opportunity to learn more abilities, which is very nice. Despite their comparative simplicity, Berserkers require a lot of AP. After a brief chat with Isaru, it's into another catacomb that looks very familiar, and that means it's boss time. First up, I can use my new Unhinge ability. This reduces the target's accuracy and evasion. Debatable how useful this ability actually is, but it can't hurt. Honestly, the biggest potential problem is my healing ability, or lack thereof. The good news is Berserkers have a lot of HP, but that just means my basic healing items are increasingly worthless. Hopefully I can start buying high potions soon. I'm just gonna Berserk Pain and Yuna to deal more damage. Riku can handle healing by herself. And yep, there we go, another boss down. And with Zanarkand completed, it's time to head into the final area of this chapter, Kelika. There are some random items to grab around town, but the actual destination is the woods. And no, you get out of here. I know your nonsense, and I want nothing to do with it. do some stealth, learn the 2 passcodes, screw up because of the silly camera angles used in this section. I know it's intentional, but still. And now it's time for another boss fight. Same plan as before, use Unhinged to maybe help, then punch away. So a slight problem with this fight is that I think this boss has percentage-based attacks, which are particularly dangerous when you have this much health and this little healing. Oh hey, Intimidate! That deals damage and inflicts slow. That could be useful. Oh, the boss is dead. Huh. Turns out this fight isn't that hard after all. Well, that concludes Chapter 1, and it's on to Chapter 2. This starts with a concert for some reason. Anyway, the sphere we got in Kefka has rancid vibes, so we're going to give it to the Youth League. Except LeBlanc stole it, so next big goal is to sneak into LeBlanc's headquarters. But before I can do the actual plot, I need to do some side quests. And that starts in Besaid with the Gunner's Gauntlet, a kind of tedious minigame about shooting monsters all along this path. The process is honestly pretty boring, but you can get some decent rewards. Now, as much as I'm sure people want me to casually shoot a bunch of monsters slowly, accruing the points I need to unlock the best rewards, how about we don't do that, and instead I'll just grind this off screen. Okay, good. And there we go. Gunner's Gauntlet completed, and the best reward, the Adamantite. This gives a huge buff to durability, both by massively increasing the character's defenses, but also giving them auto wall. Now, this does have the downside of just destroying their agility, but hey, sometimes you need some extra defense. But wow, look at that ATB gauge, that is a lot. Then it's over to Mushroom Rock Road to do some fights, and the game crashed. Alright, time to reload. Although there also isn't really anything that interesting here either, I guess I should just actually do the main events, because I think everything else is completely worthless to me. So that means it's over to Jose Temple, because I need to get permission to dig at Beaconell. And conveniently, the next destination is right next door on the high road. Here I can beat up a bunch of goons to chase down this sphere, and it's fight time! Against Ormy and Logos. First, dispatch the goon, then slowly beat up Ormy and Logos. Emphasis on slow. I mean, I basically can't lose because Yuna is taking almost no damage. But wow, that ATB speed is really rough. Oh well, at least I can deal decent damage and the fight is otherwise pretty easy. Alright, that means it's time to head over to Beaconell Desert, take a vehicle over to the Oasis, and it's time for another fight against Logos and 2 more goons. So, first up is to take out the goons, and then just spam attack. Logos can hit the entire party, but it really doesn't matter. I barely lose any HP, even on the characters who aren't functionally indestructible. And last on the list is to head over to Mount Gagazet, where I just cannot remember how to actually get to where the stupid goons are. Seriously, I get lost here literally every time I come here. Oh, I need to talk to Kamari first? Interesting. Anyway, now I can chase down the goons and start another boss fight. And this time it's just against Ormy, who can hit decently hard, but I think that attack may actually be percentage-based, meaning it's not actually that threatening. And that's Ormy down for the, 3rd time, I think? Good news is that means I have my 3 LeBlanc uniforms, which means it's time for a minigame. And into the secret area of LeBlanc's headquarters, and then the game crashed again. Because of course it did. Anyway, reloaded, and it's time for another Ormy fight, and in this fight I take out 1 goon, but leave the other one alive. Ormy has a very dangerous attack called Huggles in this fight, but he will actually only use it if he is the only enemy left. Considering the amount of damage that attack can do, it is best to leave 1 goon alive and finish off Ormy first. Which, yep, is way easier. Then, sit here for a bit, and it's next boss time. Just like before, it's best to take out Ormy first because of his dangerous Huggles attack. He also hits quite hard with Super Collider because it deals 50% of the target's HP, but Logos is also no joke, having access to fun status effects, including instant death. This fight ends up taking a lot more healing than I'd like, but the fight is won. Then run around, hit some switches, reach the end of the area, and it's time to fight all 3 of them together. I didn't heal. That's, not ideal. Now, that would likely normally not be an issue because Yuna takes no damage from anything thanks to the Adamantite, but she doesn't actually have any status protection. Well, that's embarrassing. Alright, fine, let me reload and actually... Oh, the autosave was right before the fight? You know what? New plan. Throw things. I have a bunch of grenades lying around that were dropped in previous fights. While not ideal, they can deal decent all-target damage. And while LeBlanc loves her not-so-mighty guard, I actually have Crackdown, an attack that also dispels Protect and Shell. So, while the fight still goes a lot worse than it really should have, I can power through. Note, buy high potions ASAP, because I really need to improve my healing ability at some point. And completing that section means LeBlanc and Co. are now on our team, which is fine, I guess. But that does mean it's time to head to Bevelle for the next story beat of this chapter. Hello, barkeep. you don't sell high potions yet. Grim. Oh well, regular potions will have to do. And getting through this area means a lot of fights against a lot of guards, which are all very weak, so it's actually pretty quick. And then the Cloister of Trials, filled with a bunch of random fights. At least there are decent items here to steal. And once through the cloister, it's into the hidden paths to this stupid area. This amounts to a kind of puzzle, but really it's closer to just interact with the door, get a random fight, repeat until the actual boss shows up. The only saving grace is that Berserker actually deal pretty good damage, so the fights themselves are pleasantly quick. And then it's boss time. This, whatever this is, which loves to use slow and demi to disable and deal big damage. The good news is I too can inflict slow. Oh, you have death. Oh well, I may not have high potions, but I do have a decent stockpile of Phoenix Downs. You know what, I'm actually going to unequip the Adamantite. Durability is actually not that huge of an issue for me, and that speed reduction just means dealing less damage overall. Yeah, that's better. Anyway, there is a puzzle here to get a ribbon. Normally I'd hold off on it until later when I'm a bit higher level, but Berserkers do actually deal pretty good damage, meaning these fights are not taking nearly as long as normal. So I may as well just do this now so I don't have to come back later. The process is aggressively tedious and involves way more fights than it really should, but hey, more experience now means I will need less experience later. I do have to run back to Barkeep to buy more potions and save at the save sphere a few times, but it's not too bad. Okay, that all finally done, and I have a ribbon. Hooray, status immunity. Okay, now I can finally move on, and after some platforming nonsense, I get the Bloodlust accessory. This gives a big strength buff, but has some downsides. Are they worth it? Who can say? Anyway, onwards to the next boss fight, now against Bevelle. Envenom to poison for some passive damage, Unhinged to reduce accuracy and evasion, and finally Intimidate to, oh, he's immune to slow, and dead. Alright then, well that was a boss fight I guess. Okay, next up is an actual boss fight against Dark Bahamut. Same strategy as with Bevelle. Okay, no poison, but it looks like he can be slowed, so that's an improvement. Anyway, status effect successfully applied, time to spam attacks. Hopefully quickly, because I don't really have any healing. Impulse also deals percentage damage, making it particularly dangerous. I guess I should use a light curtain to apply Shell, if only to weaken Mega Flare. Oh right, I forgot how weak Mega Flare was in this game. Anyway, that's Bahamut down. Seriously, Bahamut is so strong in the original game, and here he's so pathetic. But that ends Chapter 2, and into Chapter 3. Everything is bad everywhere. I mean, that doesn't really impact me in any way, other than defining the next few story beats, but hey, state of emergency or whatever. Barkeep, you sell high potions. Finally. Just in time for them to kind of stop being that useful. But before dealing with the impending crisis, it's time for a minigame, Sphere Break, and that means quasi-competitive math, which is pretty easy. To be fair, I don't actually care about winning the Sphere Break tournament, I just need to activate an item coin, while facing off against Shinra to get the Treasure Hunt Garment Grid. This will let me mug with one character, which should help a bit with item acquisition. How useful is this actually? Probably not, but more items are better and there isn't really a downside. Successful mugs also grant AP, so Pain will have slightly more AP than everyone else. And that may as well start on the Mihen High Road. I don't actually care about the quest here, but it's decent experience, so there's no harm in doing it. I'm not actually sure how important any of the other side quests are. I guess I can do the Makalania quest? I never let her walk onto the airship, so it's not going to unlock anything, but it's a lot of fights in very close sequence. And the Barbudas have lunar curtains to steal. I should be set on lunar curtains. Probably forever, actually. Oh well, completing those fights got me some decent experience. I guess I do Mount Gagazet next. I mean, I'm not even sure this mission has anything good either, but we'll see. Also, thank goodness I have the Charm Bangle. No encounters is great. Anyway, Samranso and Garrick. This fight can sometimes be a nightmare, but this time, it won't be. Mostly because my damage is good, I have Crackdown to break through his mighty guards, and 2 of my party members have learned auto-regen at this point. Regen doesn't heal a lot of HP, but it is consistent HP regeneration, which is great. It also improves as my max HP continues to increase to stupidly high levels. Okay, actual plot time, and that starts in Besaid with a boss fight against Dark Veil 4. And first up is to hit with my slow, poisoned, and accuracy reduction. I'm not even sure how many of those do or even can hit, and in retrospect I probably shouldn't have bothered, because wow, that was really fast. Next up, it's over to Kilika to sneak past the barricade with Donna's help. The woods are totally fine and safe, nothing bad has happened here, but just in case that's not true, it's time to climb over the trees, reach Kilika Temple, and it's time for the next boss fight against Ifrit. And as usual, I'm going to start with my status attacks. Will they work? Will they do anything? Who can say? But anyway, that done, it's kind of just spam attack, and some of those hits are pretty chunky. Is he limping already? Oh, the fight's over. He only got like 4 turns. He didn't even use Hellfire. Okay, what's next? Oh yeah, I guess I should do the Yojimbo stuff. That requires me to rescue a bunch of people from this stupid cave, and with everyone rescued, it's time to actually fight Yojimbo. And this fight is a bit tricky. Start with some status effects just to see if any of them stick. They don't, but that's not a huge loss. The actual issue is Yojimbo has a messy moveset. He loves to inflict poison on party members and then use Zanmato to reduce the entire party to 1 HP and 1 MP. So I had to split focus between curing poison, attacking to deal damage, and be ready to heal everyone at a moment's notice. Auto regen helps a bit just with the passive healing, but it still takes a lot of micromanaging. Yojimbo is also surprisingly durable, especially considering how quickly Veil 4 and Ifrit went down. But thankfully, some careful planning and attack sees Yojimbo go down. Another Dark Aeon defeated. Not that that one is actually required. And that means the only destination left is Jose Temple, and that means a fight against Dark Ixion. Okay, status effects go. Alright then. Big issue here is Aerospark, which deals percentage damage. I don't think I've ever realized how many attacks in this game are percentage based. At least Ixion's other attacks are not super frightening. Yeah, even Thor's hammer is pretty uninteresting. Ixion is more durable than Ifrit and Veil 4, but honestly not by that much. Alright, the Dark Aeons are defeated, crisis averted. Oh, except Yuna gets exploded and falls into the center of the world. Or something. Where are we? And that concludes Act 3, meaning we are very much trucking along, although because it's Act 4, that means the fun has now come to a stop, because it's time to watch some calm spheres. Yay, it's so much fun. I'm just glad these aren't all required. Anyway, now it's down to the Moonflow for a super fun chase sequence that just keeps going long after it should have stopped, but at least it's done now. And that means time to get ready for a concert. And that starts with this minigame thing, whatever this is. This gets me the Smooth Sailing, which has Auto Slow and Super Ribbon, so kind of useful, but only if I get Auto Haste. And of course, before I can enjoy the fun silly concert, I need to do some violence. Because in this cave, in addition to some moderately useful items, is the Salamander. And in this fight, I can basically skip the status inflicting moves. Mostly because this boss is vulnerable to Eject, which my entire party can use. It still takes a decent number of attempts, and then goodbye. And that means the day is saved and it's concert time. Hope everyone enjoys this blinding green screen instead of the cutscene that's supposed to play here. Delightful. Oh, and the cutscene is also unskippable, so... Or at least I think it is. It's also possible I can't see the skip button because of the green screen. Anyway, that's Act 4 completed. Which means we're in the endgame now, and everything is a hotspot, and basically none of it is worth doing. But I'll start by heading over to Jose to beat up this construct for some reason. Oh, there's a hyper risk back here. That makes way more sense. Next up, it's over to the Calmlands to... Oh, right, I messed up. You have to start the matchmaking quest before Chapter 5. Unfortunate. That was going to be how I got Auto Haste. You know what? Berserkers are pretty strong as is. I may not need Super Ribbon. I guess we'll see. And actually, that is it. There is nothing else I actually want or need. So it's time to dive into the final dungeon, and that starts with Shiva. And I'm going to start this fight with Lunar Curtains and Light Curtains. I have too many of these, and they apply Shell and Protect. Next up is to use some status effects and Howl. This ability, learned on my entire party, doubles the character's max HP. Sadly, it doesn't then heal them by that amount, but that's okay. I'll be honest, the main reason I'm using Howl is that it also functionally doubles the healing from regen, which is pretty nice. Hey bud, can you stop inflicting stop on pain? Yeah, killing her isn't better. The real issue in this fight is that high potions are very much not cutting it, and mega potions are a pain to access. So, okay, Shiva's dead, mostly because I'm inflicting just too much damage. Is it time for Bloodlust? I think it's time for Bloodlust. Mostly because the next fight against the Mega Sisters is going to be rough. This fight, as ever, is a fight of attrition, or more accurately, speed, because if the Mega Sisters get off Delta attack, I will die. But they are fairly dangerous even before that. They have plenty of buffing spells, offensive magics that I struggle to heal up from, and Pasado, which deals 15/16 of the target's HP, meaning it will always be incredibly dangerous. Yeah, no, this isn't gonna work. Setting aside damage, I just don't have the healing I would need. Okay, let's try this again, but no Bloodlust and no Adamantite. That should, in theory, let me focus fire one of the sisters maybe more effectively. And yeah, Crackdown is nice to break through barriers, but it doesn't look like any other status effects work. That's not ideal. My damage is also looking pretty weak, and yeah, no point in continuing this. Instead, it's time to finally do some leveling. No ma'am, I wanted to be here. Good news is all enemies scale up as the game progresses, so Mihan Hyrule has a decent mix of fairly easy to kill enemies. In truth, I'm not actually that interested in levels specifically, I'm actually looking to get the counter abilities. Berserkers, much like monks in Final Fantasy V, can counterattack enemies, and in fact, they have counterattack and magic counter, both very good at increasing their effective damage output. Honestly, given how meh a lot of my other abilities have been, I probably should have prioritized counter abilities sooner. Oh well, what can you do? I'll be honest, I'm mostly confused about why I even bothered recording all this footage. And it's back into the fight with a considerable amount of levels under my belt, and equally importantly, counterattack and magic counter. That means I can still deal a decent chunk of damage, even when I don't actively use any attacks. Also, using a curtain to give my entire party reflect is surprisingly effective. And there goes one of them, which is huge. Now that one sister has been dropped, I don't have to worry about Delta attack, and while both remaining sisters can still deal okay damage, they aren't nearly as threatening. Honestly, the biggest issue is just how stupidly evasive they are. But eventually all the Mega Sisters have dropped. Alright, let's do this. Next up is Anima. First up, it's time to howl to double HP, and therefore double my regen healing. Anima's biggest threat is status effects. Riku is immune thanks to her ribbon, but everyone else is still vulnerable. Good news is, Anima's damage is pretty meh, especially with lunar curtains and enhanced regen. Oblivion is more dangerous, but only because it inflicts stat penalties that actually stack, which could be bad, but this fight is not going to actually last long enough for that to be a meaningful threat. This fight is so much easier than the Mega Sisters, even if only because I only have one target to think about instead of 3. And with the Dark Aeons beaten, it's time for everyone's favorite part, a stupid piano puzzle, which no, does not become less obnoxious the more times you do it. Ooh, Mega Elixir. Okay, that's something. Does that make the stupid puzzle more tolerable? A little bit. After another cutscene, it's time for the final sequence of fights, and first up is Vegnagun's tail. And this fight could be a problem. The tail has 2 attacks, both which deal percentage damage, and Berserkers have a lot of HP. This is probably a good time to use my limited Mega Potions actually, because no other boss has this much percentage damage. And I do have to use 2 of them to survive, but that boss had a lot less health than I expected, which is good. Okay, next up is the foot. And my next trick is equipping these sprint shoes on Yuna. This gives her the ability to cast haste in combat. Berserkers may have very little MP and even less magic, but haste doesn't actually care about that, and that can help counter the foot's slowing ability. There are the 3 colored orbs that will try to help the foot, but the red one doesn't actually deal that much damage, the green one doesn't heal enough for me to care, and the yellow one's buffs don't really mean anything when Crackdown can break through Protect. Alright, next up is the core. Same plan as before, cast haste on the party and throw out some curtains. This is complicated somewhat by the hands having Dispel and Petrification, which I didn't actually know, so maybe not worth it with the buffs. Instead, I'll just punch. And those punches are doing good work. The core can revive the hands with full life, but 3000 HP is not that much. Not compared to the amount of damage Berserkers can deal, especially when I get some good combo attacks. With the core down, all that remains is the head. Much like the prior fights, this is the main target with 2 helpers. Let's throw out some buffs again. Surely he doesn't have Dispel. Wow, 800 damage is not as scary as it used to be. Although he does hit pretty quickly. Guess it's time for elixirs to pad out my healing. Though honestly, now that I've howled to double everyone's HP, I'm not actually sure how much healing I need. The real issue is the boss loves to inflict status effects. Oh, I have a Chocobo Wing. Yes, please. I will in fact use that. Haste on everyone at once is a considerable improvement. Out comes his most dangerous attack, and it deals 1200? Okay, that's like 6 regen ticks max. I am shockingly unconcerned. And I was right to not be worried, because that fight did not take very long. Not that I was honestly expecting it to. Berserkers just deal so much damage. But anyway, game's not over yet. I still have to fight Shuyin. And Shuyin has 3 worthless attacks and one that can typically one-shot a character. Terror of Xanarkand. Wow, that didn't even kill the target. Alright, I mean, Howl is probably overkill, but it is very funny, so I'm going to do it. But jokes aside, between haste, regen, and my stupidly high HP totals, Shuyin is even less threatening than normal. He doesn't even manage to take out a single character before getting absolutely wrecked. And that was Final Fantasy X-2, beaten with only monks. Berserkers, whatever. And after the difficulties of my prior 2 runs in this game, that was a breath of fresh air. It's almost like the game is designed for you to constantly switch between your available dress spheres in combat to address problems, and having big damage as an option is really good. But I will have more to say about that in the summary video, out in a few weeks. I did want to shout out that I do have a Patreon, linked in the description. I spend a lot of time making these videos, so if you enjoyed the video, want to support the channel, and are financially stable enough to do so, that exists. No pressure though, this channel is free to enjoy for everyone, and will remain that way. For now, if you like this video, be sure to hit that like button. If you'd like to see more of this, feel free to subscribe. Hey, maybe leave a comment if you have something you'd like to say. But whatever you decide to do, have a safe trip home.